Anthony Housefather is on the line. Story today, and this is something I was hearing this on the news this morning about the idea that we've not really talked a whole lot about situations, anti-Semitic situations here, protests at schools, and this goes back a ways. But interesting to read, the federal government is on this story. I'm not sure what happens municipally on this, but it's nice to hear that federally, at least, there is some good news. The federal government today announcing an investment of nearly $300,000 to be distributed between 9 Jewish community projects in Montreal. Anthony Housefather is on the line. Anthony, thanks for being here this afternoon.
Oh, pleasure, Aaron. And by the way, this is just my riding. These are 9 projects that I've announcing in my riding, and there's a couple of others that are sort of pending. There are other projects that are in other ridings across Montreal, so the amount is vastly more than $300,000.
Wow. Okay. So first of all, let me understand. This is through an existing program, right, in the federal government?
Yeah, there's been a security infrastructure program that we've quadrupled funding for over the last many years. But this is a new version of that program. It's an enhanced security infrastructure program put into place after October the 7th. So it's a new round of funding that allows you to pay, for example, for security guards that weren't covered before. It allows you to pay for the normal stuff like video cameras, double doors, bulletproof windows. But it's a much more flexible program that allows you to cover a great deal of things that weren't covered under the original program.
Okay. So with respect to you can mention some of the organizations, as you mentioned, and congratulations to you, tip of the hat for getting this for your particular riding. But let's go through some of the organizations who will be benefiting from this.
Sure. Well, the 2 biggest ones are Yeshiva Yavne, which is a school in Côte St. Luc, and the Federation CJAD, which is our central community building. That was the one that had the protesters surrounding it last Monday night. And those are the biggest projects. One of them is over 100,000. One of them is 80-some thousand. But then there's any number of synagogues and schools in the ridings that have gotten smaller amounts of money, ranging from 3,000 up to over 100,000. So it's a good news thing in the sense that all of these will benefit from making sure that the buildings are safer and that people are more protected when they enter the building.
So I'm curious as well. I said off the top, I remember when we had the police chief in here, Fadi Daguerre, talking, and this goes back, I understand, a little over maybe a month or 2 now, but about security being presented at the time and different organizations asking for help from the city. And the city was very careful about committing really to anything beyond what had happened in the first 2 weeks. Is this done in conjunction with the city? Have you had a chance to speak to authorities here about this at all? And what have they said?
They're well aware of the program, but it's not in conjunction with the city. My riding encompasses 4 municipalities: Côte St. Luc, Hampstead, TMR, and part of the city of Montreal. And all of my mayors and councilors are aware, of the program, but it's not done in conjunction. Okay. This is a separate federal program.
So, and it would then seem to me, if they were to ask, it's possible there could be additional funding made available through the city should the city decide to go there.
Well, if the city creates a program like that, of course. But I can't speak for the city. What I can say is federally, we've exhausted the money from this round, but my number one budget priority is to make sure that there's more money, again, for not only the Jewish community, but for the Muslim community and for the Christian community and other communities, to protect schools, community centers, synagogues, churches, etc. So I am going to be doing my best, and I think I'm fairly confident that there will be more money for a new round of this program relatively shortly.
So I want to bring up something else, which I remember at the time being an issue as well. I remember some of these centers, for example, you mentioned the yeshiva, had said, look, the way things are going right now, it's getting serious, and it's getting more serious by the day, and they were trying to get armed guards, which the city said they could not, or I think the province actually weighed in and said, no, you can't do that. Has that moved anywhere? Is that going to change? Do you have any idea?
So we had, as local elected officials from both the municipal, provincial, and federal level, created a set of proposals, and one of the proposals that most of us had subscribed onto at the municipal and federal level, at least, was the idea of allowing, on a temporary basis, there to be police, off-duty police, who would be armed at these institutions, that they could hire security like they can in Ontario and in other provinces. And the province completely rejected that, and that's a Quebec decision. It's Quebec that doesn't allow it because it is allowed in other provinces.
So they reject that idea, but what I find interesting is the idea came up of armed guards. So, people who might be, for example, working for Brinks, I use that as an example. You mentioned off-duty police
Yes.
are not allowed to do that by virtue of what the province has told you as well. So you're
Exactly.
kind of stuck.
The proposal was not for armed guards from Brinks. The proposal was to allow off-duty police officers to do this, as they do in other provinces.
Right.
And I think that would have been a very beneficial thing, because I think, especially at the time in November, after there were 2 Molotov cocktails thrown and there were bullets through 2 different schools, people were particularly scared. And the armed guards would have been nice when the police stopped doing the extra patrolling of these buildings. But I think right now the main issue, I think, for most people on the policing side is the demonstrations and the lack of policing of the demonstrations.
All right, well, let me sort of go ahead and take that to the next level. That's been a concern as well, the lack of policing, the lack of arrests. I know there were a couple of arrests just, I think, about a week or so ago. Mm-hmm. What is happening as far as that is concerned? Is that likely to change? I mean, I think when it's not in the news every day, Anthony, people tend to just forget about it.
100%, but it was in the news last week, as you said, because we had protests at Federation's building on Monday that blocked people in the building for 3 hours as demonstrators on private property blocked the building and police didn't clear them. And so for Tuesday, I and other of my fellow elected officials, even though this is municipal, but my provincial colleague joined me, municipal colleagues joined me, and we asked the police very strongly on the Tuesday the demonstration at the Spanish and Portuguese synagogue to make sure there was a security perimeter. People have a right to demonstrate, but they should be across the street. They shouldn't be blocking people accessing buildings and getting out of buildings and intimidating people, because then you're using your free speech right to deny others their free speech rights. So this is what police need to enforce, and that requires the municipal authorities in big cities across Canada, but politicians at all levels like me, to tell the police, we will entirely support you when you don't act as innocent bystanders at these demonstrations, but you actually police and create a safe zone and a perimeter, and make sure that people are not intimidated when they're themselves are exercising their rights.
Do you feel, and again, I'm going to mention the police chief's name, Fadi Daguerre, who was very involved at the beginning, made a point of saying, I'm talking to communities everywhere, Jewish, Muslim, etc. Has that level of commitment sort of fallen off, do you think?
No, I mean, I think the police themselves are doing their best, and I appreciate very much what the Montreal police are doing. I think police chiefs across the country, and I've spoken to a number of them, feel very hampered by not getting clear instructions from the municipal government as to what they want them to do and where they'll be defended and where they won't. Mm-hmm. And I think a lot of the police on the line particularly are very frustrated at not being able to act more quickly while these demonstrations are happening. And I understand the goal of, letting things play out and not further exacerbating a delicate situation. But what's ending up happening is a targeted community feels completely intimidated, are afraid to enter their own buildings, and that's not okay either. Like Jews in Canada, and no other group either, should be afraid to enter community buildings. It's completely wrong.
So you sound like you're making the case not so much the police being the ones here who are perhaps not as fully committed as the municipal administration.
Yes, that is exactly what I'm saying. I am exactly saying that the Plante administration needs to take better actions to have the police do more things at these demonstrations that would make, a clear perimeter between demonstrators and what's happening on the side of the synagogue, the community center, and the other Jewish institutional buildings, which should not be demonstrated, that they're targeting. And I would note also that Neil Oberman and Michael Hollander were able to obtain an injunction last week, a temporary injunction, requiring the demonstrators to remain 50 meters away from 6 community buildings. And I will be in court tomorrow along with these lawyers to argue for a permanent injunction.
All right, maybe that's something to bring up next time we have the mayor on. I'm glad you pointed that out. Anthony, I thank you so much. Appreciate it, and congratulations, if you can say that, on this announcement today. Well done.
Well, thank you so much, Aaron. Have a great day.
You too. Anthony Housefather, Liberal MP for Mount Royal.